Yeah. So most Preptober videos that I have watched about character tend to focus on your main character and maybe your main character's love interest, your main character's best friends, and all that kind of thing. But I have found quite a dearth of resources on creating antagonists. And that is very interesting to me because antagonists are extremely important. However, I, as a rule, have continuously undervalued how important antagonists are, to the point where in certain novels that I have written, I have spent absolutely no time, that is zero time, developing my antagonists at all. They just kind of show up, which is bad. Let's just put that out there. That is not good because antagonists are important. Some people say antagonists are even more important than your hero or your protagonist or whatever you want to call them. Heroine? I don't know. Hero. Is there a gender neutral way to say hero? I guess hero. I don't know. Anyways, so 2 lessons that I've learned. Number 1, and I got this from Shonda Rhimes, her masterclass. I have a video on it. It's great. It's all about how you should like your antagonists. I know, that sounds weird. But she said that her least favorite thing is going into a writer's room and hearing someone be like, oh, I hate Papa Pope, or I hate Cyrus. And she comes in and she's like, no. Papa Pope is a caring, protective, loving father. Because that's how he sees himself. And we have to love our antagonists. We have to embrace our antagonists. And we have to have compassion for our antagonists, because otherwise they're just going to be A, boring, which many of my antagonists have been, and B, stereotypical, which, again, many of my antagonists have been. And the second thing that I've learned, in order to kind of relate to the first one, it's kind of a how-to for the first one, now that I think about it, is it pays to, I don't want to say be non-obvious, but to not go with the first thing you think of for your antagonist. Someone who's just pure evil isn't as interesting as someone who is shades of gray. Someone who clearly believes in their cause and who clearly believes that they are the good guy. Like looking at Voldemort versus Professor Umbridge, I would say Professor Umbridge is the more compelling antagonist. And that's because her motivation is a lot more clear and a lot deeper. So let's do an example. I'm going to give an example from my current work in progress. And so in this work in progress, I have a professional musician as the main character. And she has been taught by her aunt how to play the violin. Her aunt's been her teacher for full life. And as part of this character Ghost, this hasn't changed between the first draft and the third draft, which I'm writing right now, her aunt asked her to please hide her sexuality from everyone around them, from her family, etc. That happens about a year before the story takes place, 9 months, something like that. So originally, in the first draft, my thinking was, well, this aunt is super religious, she is homophobic, and that's it, you know? And I really didn't like that character. There's nothing wrong with that characterization, and honestly, in a different story, that would be great. My story is not meant to tackle homophobia, though, and so, I just went with the most obvious thing. This story, it was very black and white because I wasn't going to explore that theme. Going into the third draft, I very much realized that it wasn't detailed enough and that it wasn't serving my story. A main need of my protagonist, a main problem of my protagonist is really that she is trying to be a successful musician, and she believes that if she is not successful, if she is not the best musician, if she does not do everything exactly by the book, if she does not excel in the traditional sense, she does not follow all of the rules exactly as they are, if she doesn't get into this one orchestra, basically, everything is going to fall apart. It will be the worst thing possibly ever to happen to her. She will have no identity. She will be done. And nobody will love her. That is her problem. And so because this character is important to her inner psyche, I thought, okay, this antagonist needs to fit that somehow. I still want the same thing to happen. She's still going to tell Lena the year before the story starts. She's still going to tell her the same thing. But why? And so I brainstormed for a little bit, and I ended up changing Lena's family structure. There was always this case for my main character where she was the oldest of a bunch of siblings who were much, much younger. Kind of, I don't know if you've ever read Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, but there's a really great line where Tibby's like, they had me when they were young, my parents, and then they had her two younger siblings later when they were like ready to do it all, like the suburban people. When Tibby was younger, when Tibby was first born, they were all like hippie and stuff. And so now her parents are like doing it again with young kids. I wanted Lena, my character, to have that same kind of feeling. I decided it would be more interesting if Lena's mom had her at 16 years old and she moved in with her sister, her aunt, this antagonist. And that gave the aunt this worldview that if someone strays from the path, if someone screws up, then everything will go to, and she'll have to clean it up. That's what the aunt thinks. If you do something wrong, it's going to affect my life. I'm going to have to come in. I'm going to have to clean it up. She's very much an Enneagram type 2. She's a helper. She wants to go in and help, but she gets to be bitter about it because she's done it so much, and it's honestly messed up her life quite a bit, or at least changed her life quite a bit. She doesn't want to do it again. That gives you a very different motivation being in a conversation to say, don't tell anyone about your sexuality because it will destroy your focus and not allow you to focus on your violin, and it will destroy your career, and then I will have to clean everything up and it will be a big mess. That is very different from I'm homophobic. I mean, it's still probably a little homophobic. You wouldn't say that to a trade person, but the real motivation behind it is really, really very much the antagonist's past. And it very much ties into my protagonist's need. And so that change has been really eye-opening because now I understand this aunt. I get her. I get her deep down. I understand that she wants to help. I understand that she's been putting herself last. I understand that it's turned her bitter. And I have a lot more compassion for her, and I'm more excited to write the scenes with her and excited about how I can convey these things to the audience. Another example. Now that is kind of a hidden antagonist. She's a little bit more in the background here. That's kind of a ghost. I have an antagonist who is the big bad. And if this is a trilogy, if it turns into this 3-book series that I have in mind, she will be the big bad they defeat at the end. And originally, I had some interesting ideas. I looked up some things about the mafia, and I had an Instagram picture, I suppose, that I was kind of basing her off of, and there were an interesting thing or two about that, but quite honestly, I had some vague ideas about her, and I did not know anything. I think I mentioned this earlier, that I went to see a show called Bloody Mary at the Edinburgh Fringe, and that really inspired me. And instead of having someone who acted super evil, I now have someone who, again, I can see how her circumstances have shaped her and made her extremely angry and made her go to the point where she is basically willing to kill people over a violin. So, but at the same time, the character that I have in my head, I also adore her. I have her song, which is Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. Yeah. It's a very, very revolutionary song for a villain, but it works. And her Taylor Swift reputation, just that like angry, sarcastic, I don't give a about anything. And I love her for it. I love her for that. I think she's incredible. And so finding those things in my villains that I can love, that I can latch onto, that I can have compassion for, has really, really helped. And I think it's going to help in the third draft and really let those characters shine through. Give it a lot more energy, give it a lot more life, give it a lot more fun. People love to hate Umbridge. Voldemort's just there. We want our villains to be Umbridges, not Voldemort's. We want our villains to have lives. We want our villains to do things that are compelling. And we ourselves want to, I think it's better if I'm interested in my villain. If I understand my villain deeply, if I empathize with them, and if I find them interesting, I think I'm more likely to write good conflict. Because it's not just good versus evil. It's not just, these are my loves and you suck. You know what I mean? It allows it to be more nuanced. It allows it to be more interesting, which I think is super duper fun. So that is all I have to say about writing antagonists and villains. You can find other information. I love how the anatomy of story actually lays this out. The things of your antagonist and your protagonist needing to have the same goal, pushing values to the corners, ensuring that you have values in opposition rather than just people. Lots of good information on that there. But this is the one, just the reminder to, focus on your villain, I think is the point of this video. Take some time in Preptober for the antagonist. The antagonists are neglected, but the antagonist can really make a story. That's what I've learned anyways. That's what I'm doing this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any tips for writing great antagonists, or any piece of advice or subjects that you think are often neglected in NaNoWriMo, let me know in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.